Hello everyone. I think we're live. I'm just gonna double check in the group and make sure we are there. Yep, we totally are. I think we're live. I'm just gonna... shush. Okie dokes. Awesome. So... let's get started. Welcome to Crush It With Confidence, episode 8 already. It's kind of going really quickly. That means we've been at it for 2 months already, and it seems like only yesterday that I came back from the US, which is like totally crazy. So as always, comment, hashtag live if you're here live, hashtag replay if you're here for the replay. I like to see how many of us are actually joining us. I was just saying to Sarah, I might have to change the time in the long run to make sure more people can join us live, because I get that not everyone wants to get up at 5 a.m. to listen to people being interviewed. So let us know if you can see and hear us. If you are on right now. I'm now slightly paranoid about that whole thing. So give us a shout out if you are here. We are continuing with Juggling June, which has been a really interesting month because we are talking all about juggling all the things that we have on in our lives. I've said for a long time that most of us have other commitments. For some people it's been children, for some it's been relatives, for some it's been personal health. And that's where we want to kind of take a little dive in today. Because I have a feeling that many people never start out on the journey to building a business because they say, yeah, but I have this or my situation is that. And I really want to show you that so much is possible. So for that, one of the people I thought of, we've got joining us today, and that's Sarah Shuttle. Sarah's the founder of Ola, which is a web design and brand styling studio. She's based in the UK, and she works with lifestyle brands and creative female entrepreneurs to celebrate their individuality and to help them attract high-end clients. If you want to find out more about Sarah, you can go directly to her website, which is sarahshuttle.com. And with that said, over to you, Sarah. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about you and what you do right now?
Yeah, thanks, Jess. So, as you said, I'm a brand stylist, web designer, and I've built my design business over the last 2 years. And, that's come from it's gone on such a big journey in that time. I now work with really high-end brands to transform them into sort of matching their visual identity. So I get to, I work from home, it's so much freedom.
Yeah, I think that's what attracts so many of us to it, is having a little bit more of that freedom in our life. So have you always been doing design and creative things, or is that something that you worked out over a period of time as something that you are super interested in and you just wanted to develop in that direction?
So I never studied design. In fact, I was headed in the academic route. I was very creative as a child, but then when I got to school, I turned out to be very academic, and so you're kind of pushed in that direction by schools. And I went the languages, maths, all that kind of stuff, and I was on this route to becoming a lawyer, which sounds so boring to me now. So I didn't take art. In fact, I dropped any kind of creative subjects. And then I became unwell, and that's, with health issues for, a good almost 8 years. And so I never worked. So in that time, I found graphic design. I taught myself design. And when it came to the end, of that period when I was unwell, I had these skills.
Yeah. It's so funny how sometimes you don't know which direction life takes you into. So you kind of just have to go with it and see what happens. So in that time period where you weren't working, how did you make sure that you keep yourself to keep yourself active and going? Like, I've had time periods in between where I wasn't doing anything, and I got into like a frame of mind where I was literally struggling to get out of bed because I just you kind of lose that mojo, and it's so hard to kind of pick yourself back up. So how did you make sure that you were able to kind of work your way out of that?
I think part of it was, at the time I actually lived with my parents. so having a routine was kind of, it was easier, because I kind of, if I'd have lived on my own, I think it would have been a lot easier just to stay in bed. But I also, this was going on, years of not working. I needed to keep my mind occupied, and I tried so many different things. Just I had to keep my mind busy, because part of what I was struggling with my health issues was, addiction. And I had to keep busy, had to keep my mind busy if I was going to get better.
Yeah. No, so important. And then, do you have a particular moment that you remember back to where you're like, hey, you know what, design is where it's going to go? Was there like a defining moment where you think like, hey, the light bulb went on like that day, I remember that?
Yeah. So it had been slowly progressing, and I at that time was doing writing and I was doing design, and I was like, which direction is it going to go in? And it was March 2016 that I remember we were talking about getting a house, me and my fiance now, and I needed to bring in more money than I was doing from just doing the odd job here and there for design people. So I knew I had, I either got a full-time job or I took this and gave it a chance as a proper business. And one side was the kind of security and finance and, almost not wealth, but, to the money.
Yeah.
The other side is my, my happiness and my health, which is giving my business a try. And I took that opportunity rather than trying to get a full-time job.
Yeah. I think it's almost like once you've had that taste of freedom, like if I had to imagine now that I'm going back to a job, it's like I don't know what I would do. Like I feel like I wouldn't fit in very well, and I don't know, it would be something that would probably hold me up for a long time. I would just not be happy about it. But it's like you're saying, that security, particularly when you're looking at things like buying a house. People don't like entrepreneurs very much.
No.
To be honest, just renting a house is difficult enough. So we've had that struggle last year, because I think my other half's salary was like 100 quid a month short to be considered appropriate to rent this house. So I was like, well, I do have all this money coming in. And they're like, yeah, but you haven't been in business for 2 years, so you haven't got 2 years tax returns, so we don't really care about that money.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, like hopefully we never try and buy a house like this. So
yeah.
Writing and design, what made you choose design over writing?
I think writing, I'd say I'm good at writing, and but I often get blocked, and then I doubt myself. It just wasn't flowing quite right. It was forming a novel. I could write bits and pieces here and there, but I couldn't pull it together, and I was getting frustrated. So I thought, I'm much better at design. I can make something complete.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that was something we spoke about the other day, actually. But when you started looking at getting those first clients to do design work for, what would you say made a big difference to you? Like, do you remember that there was something that you were doing, or?
Yeah, so I was on Etsy, and selling like logos on there, and I had an inquiry from someone who introduced me to Facebook groups, and it was being introduced to a Facebook group that changed everything, because then I got introduced to another one and different people, and from there my business took off in a really big way.
And overall, how long from when you kind of started doing those first bits of work to when you were saying, hey, you know what, this could actually pay as much as I need it every month? When did you get to that point? How long do you think it took you that you were saying, yeah, I feel like confident that the job doesn't need to happen right now. I can make this happen?
I think I actually always had that kind of a sense of belief, but it really sort of became more concrete after the first year.
Yeah.
You know, I think there was obviously an element of self-belief, or I wouldn't have kept going, but it was obviously it's still the service-based business is often that feast or famine, and when you're in the top of the roller coaster and everything's great, you know, but then you dip, and then all of a sudden you're like, can I really do this?
Yeah, it is. And the funny thing is, I think that's what people that are not in this space often struggle to understand. It can happen within an hour. Like,
yeah.
So you're like on a total high at 2:00. You're like, yeah, this is amazing. Like, I could do this for the rest of my life. And then an hour later, you're like, just remind me, why am I doing this? And it goes so quickly. So
yeah, and I find that's directly related to my tiredness, or my how tired I am, as to how I feel about my business.
Yeah, I can definitely talk about tiredness for something. Today, very tired. So, feast or famine, that's often a big problem. How do you make sure that you proof your business against that kind of cycle where you have loads of new inquiries, you get booked up, and then you don't market as much, and then suddenly there's like a dip? What would you think are your kind of top tips to avoid being stuck in that?
I'd say, keep doing the marketing even when you've got the clients. It's so easy to get caught in, I'm so busy with the clients that I've got, and drop off your social media or whatever it is you're doing. And then once those projects are finished, you wonder why there's no more inquiries.
And any tips for protecting your time?
In terms of
doing that marketing and not actually letting people completely take over your life, which can happen very quickly.
Yeah, I'm really, keeping the boundaries now of what my working hours are in terms of with clients. So yes, I may work out of normal hours, but in terms of dealing with clients, I say 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And this is, if that's just the way it is to, otherwise it could just take over your whole life.
Yeah, it happens. And I think when we're first starting out, we sometimes don't realize that we're allowing these things to happen to us, because we're so excited to help people and help them as much as we can, and we're approachable. And then suddenly when it gets busy, you realize that actually this is now a big problem. And once you've kind of got clients, once you've been replying after hours, once you've been replying at weekends, it's super hard to tell them I am no longer doing that. So yeah, my biggest tip is to have those boundaries from the beginning, even when it doesn't actually matter just yet and you could reply. Just because once you're at that point, if you have an ongoing working relationship, it's like, please don't message me on Messenger. Please don't message me on Messenger. And then it's like, pop, pop, the messages will just keep coming because that's what was okay. So yeah, that's definitely been something. But that's a learning curve, I guess, we sort of go through over time. So when did you decide that you want to work with high-end brands, and how did you go through that transition period, going from, doing probably design work for quite a range of people to say, hey, this is actually what I want to do, this is what I want to focus on?
I really liked the projects that I basically could spend more time on, could get more creative with, and those are the ones for higher end projects because the budget is bigger, as opposed to doing smaller projects that have a lower budget and you kind of almost rushing it. You're doing your best, but it's not, you're not in your creative zone. You're not doing the very, very, very best work you can.
Yeah.
Whereas by doing fewer projects for a higher fee, and it obviously balances out, I get to provide the top work.
Do you think that's been important for respecting yourself and your talent?
Yeah, I think so. I can, as I say, when I see my best work, it's always in the projects I've had, the most time that I can devote the most time and effort to, and that's always, it is the bigger budget projects, and I think that's definitely work with the respect.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's sometimes we get so focused on helping people. Like somebody will get in touch and you're like, hey, I have this last minute thing that needs doing and please can you help me with that? And then you think like, oh, well, I do want to help that person. But then you end up rushed into it. And it's like you're saying you're not going to produce your best work on like if somebody comes to you and be like, hey, I need a new website like on Friday. You'll be like, well, I could surely like knock something out, but it's not going to be what the person wants. And I feel like that if you send off work that isn't the best it could be because of these constraints, like that almost makes me feel so frustrated because I'm thinking like, oh my goodness, like if we just had like a couple of months, like think of what we could have actually produced versus like what we've kind of cobbled together now. So yeah, 100%. I think that's the way to go. Did you feel confident like right from the beginning? Because I think that's what I know a lot of ladies that I've talked to really struggle with, is that they do have that talent and they have practiced so much and they want to do so much more, but they just don't feel like they can just go out there and really show it. There's a lot of self-doubt and thinking about, is this really good enough? How was that for you? Did you always think, hey, I know this is good and I feel confident to like put myself out there and say, hey, I am charging these prices now so I can deliver my best work?
No, I didn't always feel confident. And I can still have days when I don't feel confident, but I'm not one of these people who's always, I don't have natural confidence. It's as if some people are born that way. I wasn't. I've always been shy, introverted, that kind of person, and struggling with low self-esteem, and it's hard to put yourself out there. To an extent, I think there was a level of self-belief, as I say, because otherwise I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But consciously, I wasn't confident.
So, what made you decide to take action anyways? Was there something that you could say like, hey, I tried this and that really helped me to get me in that frame of mind where I have to be able to tell someone, yes, the price for this is that much? Anything that you've done that you think helped you to reach that level of confidence?
I think building up my projects really and doing, I'd say, strategic projects. So, okay, I'm not saying you do work for free necessarily, but at the beginning I took on a couple of projects or on the way that for a lower price than normal, but I knew that by who I was working with, it was going to the projects would cement that kind of, it would give more credibility.
Yeah.
It would give more backing to say, look, this is what I'm charging and this is what I can do.
Yeah.
And I actually had the evidence, but I needed that break, and sometimes to have that break you've got to create it yourself.
Yeah. And I liked what you said about making sure that those projects that you did take on, because I know there's like so many people that are saying like you should never sell yourself for less than what you want to be charging, and this is like a total no-go. But when I started out, I worked in the same way. Like I I mean, I know all the experience that I have, but that was all in like a physical business, and I'd never been in this online space. So I was like, how do I know that I can really do it unless I try it out? And how do I know if I like it, right? Because you might say, hey, high-end brands, higher budgets, higher expectations, more pressure to deliver. I don't like it. You know, like, until you really try and feel it out and you're doing it, how do you know that this is actually for you? So I did the same thing, but when I did my first I think I gave 3 people 5 hours for free, 5 hours of my time to get me to fix up any tech in their business. I was like, whatever it is, just get me to fix it. I'll do it for you. It has to be making a big difference to you though. It has to be a big pain in the bum right now. If it's just a little niggly thing, I don't want to do that. I want to really help you.
Yeah.
But I didn't offer that to anyone. I only offered it to people that I believed would help me on the way to find new people to work with.
Yeah.
So those first projects, how did you decide that those were the people that you were going to do the work for, and you weren't going to charge what the end price would be? What was your kind of deciding factor on that?
So, first of all, research as to, really, it's not that I actively researched, but I had immersed myself in the kind of world of, being online, social media, and I knew who was like an influencer, who had influence in the industries that I wanted to work with. So that's part of it. And so really, I'd say just almost networking, you have to know, who is that person, or who are those few clients that are going to make the difference. And I think you've just got to dive in and really start making those connections to begin with. As opposed to maybe reaching out to someone completely, who you've never spoken to before. Having a structure, having a network, I found important personally.
Yeah, and I think it's about if you've built genuine relationships with somebody, it makes it so much easier to then make an offer to them, because you've already met them. You've shown an interest in what it is that they do. So particularly when you're new and you're trying to get the first few projects in, it can be so difficult to get someone to even give you the time of day. So I feel like there's at the moment this thing of, hey, if I just offer it for free to someone, surely they're just going to say yes. But they don't.
No, because they need to trust you.
Yeah. And
I'd say a step towards that, when I first started, was to do portfolio pieces. So it wasn't even doing work for clients, but it showed what I could do. And then there was the strategic sort of approaches to people. I had proof that I could do it, that I needed to do it for real businesses.
Yeah. And I think
obviously that works best for creative industries.
Yeah, I mean it works in loads of ways though, because even from a tech perspective, you could set something up without ever having to use it.
Yeah.
So, from a client perspective,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There is a feeling. There's a gut feeling, and ignoring it can definitely be dangerous. But it's obviously very tempting when you need work. Yeah. I think to an extent it is, because it's like, yes, you can learn from others' mistakes, but really you don't learn that lesson properly until you've done it yourself. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah. I think it's like part of the learning curve. I felt like I've done so many things where I'm now like, why on earth did I do that? And then suddenly it's like, oh, okay, it's fine. Like, I learned something. It wasn't a particularly good experience, but I feel like now I'm not going to run into that again. Like,
Yeah.
I learned the hard way that, I shouldn't ignore my gut feeling ever. Like, it just shouldn't be happening. But it's like you said, I could have said no to those projects when I was like starting out, and then I would have thought, oh, but what if that would have been the right thing? So
Yeah.
Maybe walking into that trap was a good thing. Natasha said she can't hear me. I just turned this back on, so I hope you can hear me now. Okay, she says I'm back. That's good. That's the thing with this cough that's not going. It's like I have to keep turning the microphone off to cough. So it's like, So getting back onto what does your week look like at the moment? Like, how much time are you effectively spending on client things? How much time are you spending on growing your business? How do you organize that? Like, is there a particular way in which you like structure your time so that you don't leave yourself feeling completely burnt out? Because that can happen quite quickly if we don't have anyone stopping us. Like, if we love what we do, we can pour so much time and effort into it that eventually we're just like running on empty.
Yeah, I find, I always take time in every day to stop, do something I enjoy. I'll have several breaks, and if I want a nap, I'll take a nap. I do kind of go with the flow because I don't have children, so I don't have that sort of restriction, but I really do. It's important to take that time and use it as you want to.
Yeah, I think that's difficult for a lot of people when you've just come out of your job.
Yeah.
Because you feel like, oh, this is daytime and it's a weekday.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot go for a nap right now. Like, this isn't nap time.
Yeah.
I think it took me, I don't know how, because you were probably off for some time beforehand, you might have not felt quite like that. But after I finished work, it was like I finished work on one day and then the next day I was full time in my business, and I sat here and I was thinking like, yeah, so I have to work now. So I'm just gonna sit here at my table. Is it 5 o'clock yet? Like, can I like stop working? And then over time I realized that actually I'm not very productive if I'm feeling like super tired. Like, you're better off recharging somewhere else than trying to force it. I don't know.
I've learned that lesson several times the hard way.
That's like, I'm just like, oh God, I don't know if I have to produce anything else today. I was like, I'm finished with this. So, how do you think running a business, does that ever had any effect on your relationship?
My fiance's always been really supportive. I think a couple of times it's been a bit like, either you need to get more of a work-life balance, or I think he knows that it's a long-term game financially. It's not like it always, you start and within 6 months you're six figures. It's just not like that for everyone. In fact, it's not like that for most people.
No.
So he knows that usually you start seeing the return several years later. And so anytime he said he has the thought of like, well, why aren't you contributing to this or that? He's like, no, I understand. And he stops himself.
That's like, did you ever have any moments where he's like, can you put that damn computer away now? That's what happened in our house a few times. Jakob will be like, what are you doing? I'll be like, oh, I'm just doing some work quickly. And it's like, what? At like 10 p.m. on a Saturday night? I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's the thing when you love what you do, isn't it?
Mm. I think that's the difficult thing. That's what we keep talking about when it comes to getting stuff done. And you're like, oh, now the child is sick. Oh, now that happened. Oh, now that. And it's like, oh, what happened to being in control of my time? I was like, I must have wasted away like days on end getting absolutely nothing done. So what was I doing back then when I had the time? I was like, what on earth? It's nice to feel that you've got that support at home, but from a business perspective, where's your favorite place to get support? When it comes to growing your business, any challenges that you've got?
So in the business circle, I'd say I've got several friends that I would reach out to. And that's built through communities, people that I've met through groups, and developed those friendships.
Yeah. I think they're so important.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, if we talk to people that are in our own personal space, my mum is super supportive, but she doesn't understand what on earth I even do. So there's no point asking her for anything. And I feel like sometimes I see it happen a lot that we ask the wrong people for feedback. And then they'll tell us oh, I think you should be the cheapest, drop the price on that. And you're just like, oh, I kind of have the gut feeling that that's not the right thing to do, but, my husband said to do so. And I'm like, okay, so what does that person know about running a business? You need some other people around you that are in this space too, if they understand who your ideal client is, they understand what you're working towards. So, I think business friends are just highly important. Did you ever invest in a coach to work with over that period of time when you were growing your business? And do you feel like that's made a difference to you?
I did. Yes, I would say it helped. I think it grew my confidence a lot, but I've also had very bad experiences. So my advice is definitely investigate the coach, really, really develop that, have trust and get other people's feelings about it. So yes, it helped, but it is kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is. Because
I think some people are very good at the sales talk. So it's but can they back it up? And then you're kind of convinced into buying. And then you're like, actually, this is rubbish.
Yeah, or it's not the right thing for you. Sometimes, I've asked for recommendations, and then I got a bunch of names sort of sent my way. And then it's also about, I think, establishing who that person is and whether what they're doing and the business that they've built, whether that in any way reflects a space that you are in. That's something I found that I struggled with at the beginning sometimes, is that I felt like with the work I was doing, the person wasn't in that same space, and that was very difficult because there were certain things that as a designer or a copywriter you would do differently, but providing hourly services, that looks like a completely different sort of game. So so if you were considering to work with anyone else in the future, how would you make sure that someone's right for you?
I would always want a discovery call with them first. And I know who I would want to work with because I've had one of these discovery calls.
Yeah.
And again, it's got a feeling from there, I think.
I know this is like the bottom line of so many things. It's like, how do you know what's the right thing to do? But like, I don't know, gut feeling, you see. I just, it doesn't sit right with me, so I'm totally not game for that. So what's your growth plan for the business? Where are you thinking of developing things into?
So I'm taking, obviously I do custom projects at the moment, and I'm also expanding into semi-custom, so which I'm calling the brand boutique, and they'll have semi-custom brands in which they're already styled, but I then customise it to your business name and colour palette, and it's only sold once, so it still maintains that exclusivity, but it's a little bit more it is more affordable. So I'm expanding that way.
I like that. It's kind of like you just get to the point where you're thinking, right, there are so many custom projects that you can do and so many things that you can do with your time and so many people that you can help.
Yeah.
And then you just feel like sometimes you hit this, it's like a glass ceiling that we've almost built for ourselves. And then, you know, we're knocking at the bottom and we're like, hello, like, can I come through this now onto what's like at the next stage? And it's like, no, not yet. It's like, it's not going to grow like this. So, did you ever consider expanding the business into like a passive income kind of range? Because I know that, plenty of people are looking at different ways where they can increase their capacity because they're doing one-to-ones, they're fully booked, and what's next? Or, you know, they have so much custom work, they're booked out for the next 6 months. What next?
Yeah, I've thought about it a lot. You know, I've tried different things and it hasn't been right. I've struggled with it because it hasn't felt right at all, and so it has been successful because of that. I think for me, the semi-custom brands is obviously not passive, but it's a little bit more passive than, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not a custom service, so half of it's already done. So that's where I'm looking at the moment, but I'm still looking to expand into passive income. It's quite difficult, I find, with design.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's education, but I haven't really enjoyed that in the past.
Yeah. I think you're making a super valid point, right? Just because everyone else is doing it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's right for you. And I think there's a way to do passive income in as good as any business, but it has to feel right, because you're not going to end up selling something that you don't love. Like, I think people can really tell when you show up and you're trying to, hey, like, buy this thing. And it's like, oh, you know, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sold on this. And particularly going through things like an entire launch, like, that takes so much work. And you have all these deadlines to meet. You have sales emails to write, sales pages to write, landing pages to put up, email opt-ins to connect here, do this, do that, and you're paying someone else to possibly help you with that. Then you've got to show up live on the webinar just before cart opens, and you're already kind of like on the last leg, and then you're not loving what you're doing. Like, that is just like the most exhausting thing on planet Earth. Like, I've worked with some clients in the past going through an entire launch, and they were like, at some point, like, honestly, I don't even love this. So, yeah, I
just missed all of that.
Did we get stuck?
Yeah, I heard about sending things out to a list, and then I didn't hear any of that.
Yeah, I don't know why. My video is constantly lagging on this side, and it seems like if the video is not lagging, this cuts out, which is really weird. So I think I was just saying that I've worked with clients in the past who've gone through like an entire launch not actually loving what they're doing, and that time period is so exhausting as is because of all this work that needs doing. And you may even be paying someone else to support you with it, and then you're like on your last leg, like limping through the challenge, and then you are hitting the point where you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing a live webinar tonight, and it's like all that feeling, that fire that they normally have, it's just like psst. And then all this work has gone into it, you've possibly wasted a whole load of time and a whole load of money, and there's no sales in return. And I think there's no point falling into that trap for the sake of having passive income. Like
exactly.
If you're not loving it. Would you ever have you ever thought about scaling to the point where you have multiple people working with you? Because I know that I've spoken to a couple of people in the group not long ago who were asking about the kind of agency business model and how to look into that. So I was wondering if you'd ever thought about taking it in that direction. I've actually got a sort of trial run with the first junior designer. So this is a trial run that the end client knows this is her work's great. So I've got that trust. It's just to work out the kinks in terms of the process. But she'll be taking on a project in August for me, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah. How did you decide that that's the right person to work with?
I'd looked before and it wasn't right. I didn't find anyone, and it is quite difficult because I wanted to find someone who was good, obviously, really good, but essentially wasn't as far along in their business, because otherwise, to make profit from having someone on your team doing the job, you have to take a big part of the cut. And if they're charging what I'm charging, I'd have to double that, and that's pointless.
That is, I think, the hardest thing about the agency business model is that, and it's the same in the space that we're in. So if we want to build a custom sales funnel for somebody, and I'm outsourcing all the individual pieces to the experts, and then they come back and we put them together into one. The thing is, by the time you've paid all of those individual people, you need to be sure that you still have money left in the bank, and not just a little bit. Like, you literally have to at least double what it is that they're charging. So it's really hard, and I find that particularly with copywriters, because there's very few people who can write really, really good direct response copy, and a lot of it is good, and I'm not, like, copy's not my jam. Like, that's not my top favorite thing to be doing, looking at, talking about. Natasha's probably laughing because I keep moaning if I have to write something. I have to write this. Oh man, I was like, I don't like doing it. But yeah, the really good ones charge so much that you have to, like, I don't know, like, I had to have to double the numbers, and then I'm like, no, like, no one is going to pay that outright for this kind of project. So I think that's what makes the agency business model very difficult. And I know that sometimes my phone's going absolutely bonkers sending me Slack notifications. Sometimes I find that when I look for somebody to work with and I get the hourly rate, and it's like, oh, the hourly rate is like $50 an hour, and I'm like, oh, that's really good, but just like I need a subcontracting rate, like, because otherwise there's just no way you will have any money left. And at the end of the day, it's like, by the time you factored in tax, you factored in your expenses, you will just not get a paycheck at the end of it. So there's I think that's the most difficult thing. What's your big dream? Like, when everything that you're working towards has happened, what kind of life are you aiming for?
This is something that I've struggled with, because everyone says you need to know the big dream, you need to know the big picture, what you're aiming for. And I haven't got a concrete big dream. I know the kind of level I want to be more than comfortable financially, to be able to do stuff, have the choice and freedom. Oh, if I want to buy that or I want to go there, there's no have I got the money. It's an easy choice.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I know that's concrete, apart from me, my fiance, and probably a bigger house one day.
Yeah.
So I haven't got dreams of living in some, I don't have anything concrete around that.
I could totally see that. I'd be like, I'll have a castle one day. I'll be like, oh, is it? And I was like, okay, no.
Yeah.
I'm okay without the castle. It sounds like a lot of cleaning and gardening or paying someone to do a lot of cleaning and gardening. I'm like, okay, I'm not really sure I need that in my life. So, yeah, I think as like a final question, so if someone is at that stage in their business where everything is like ticking over, but it's kind of turning into the everyday thing, like, get up, do the client projects, do a little bit of marketing, and then have dinner and like go to bed, and that's like life right now, and they feel like their business is ready to take on something else, what would be your tip for them? How are they going to work out whether the time is right, what the next step is? How are they going to get to the bottom of it?
I think it's looking at brainstorming all the ideas, even ones that you don't think are right. Just put them all down on paper. It's very easy to think of something and go, oh no, and discount it, but you never know what that's going to trigger. So literally, personally, I've written every single way that I can think of to expand my business.
Yeah.
How could I make money? I could do this, I could do that. Some of them I didn't want to do, but I always, found a few.
Yeah. I do think we're really quick to like discount things and being like, oh no, but this is never going to happen. Oh no, no one would ever pay for that. Oh no, this doesn't work for my industry. This doesn't work for my clients. This doesn't work for this. This doesn't work. We're really quick to kind of make these conclusions, and sometimes we don't allow ourselves the space to really think of what that could look like. Like you're saying, maybe, education as passive income on a large scale isn't your thing, but maybe one day there's going to be, Sarah certified designers that actually work with you one-to-one to get to that standard. And once they have that quality stamp, they go off and they build their own business. Maybe that's what it's going to look like. You never know.
Yeah, you don't know.
And unless you allow yourself the space to even just consider it and just leave it there for a bit and then come back to it another time, you won't know. So, awesome. I think that's all the questions I can think of. Anything else you'd love to give away to people where you're like, hey, if I could just share this one thing. This is like my total message. I have to have people hear that.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
I was going to say anything before we wrap up where you think, hey, this is like my message to people. I want everyone to hear that and think about it.
That no matter what you've gone through or what you are going through, you can do anything you want in business.
I like that. We can do this. It might be hard one day, but
yeah,
it definitely gets easier over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think to bear that roller coaster in mind and not to make any decisions when you're really here or when you're really here, because that's really easy.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good one.
I just hate everything right now. I'm going to fire everyone. And then I'm like, oh no, like this isn't going to work. And I was like, why was I doing that yesterday? I was like, this doesn't make any sense. So just keep our head up and keep going.
Yeah.
So you said, I don't think you said you didn't have a particular freebie. So do you want to tell people again what your website is and what they can find out on your website if they stop by?
Yeah, on my website, sarahshuttle.com. But if you want sort of daily inspiration and pretty posts, you can follow me at Sarah Shuttle on Instagram. That's where I hang out a lot. So come and follow me.
Awesome. I'm going to drop those links in the post when the interview goes out. I'm assuming the video is still going to be a bit laggy even when the recording goes out. I don't know why that is today, but we'll just have to make the best of it. And I'm going to drop those links underneath it, and then definitely pop over and follow Sarah, and maybe one day there'll be, you know, a way to grow with an agency and help even more people than you are helping already. Like, I absolutely, like, the brands that I've seen that have come out, you know, over the last few months, they look absolutely stunning. Like, I think it's pretty amazing work, and I'm glad that you kind of went in the direction to say, hey, I'm just going to focus on a couple of things at a time and not mass produce things at a rush, because yeah, I think it makes a huge difference to people when their business is ready to get to that next level, that they have that consistent brand to take them there. So yeah, so if your business is stuck right now and you want to work with more high-end clients and you feel like your branding's not cutting it, it's like, you know where to go. Okay, thanks everyone, then I'll say bye to you. If you have any questions, comments, anything that comes to your mind when you go and watch the replay, or anything that comes up, just leave a comment under the video and we'll still reply to it, even if it's later on, so we can continue the conversation. And if you see this either later on the blog or on YouTube, then feel free to leave a comment just there. I always reply to people and see what the story is. And if you have any expertise or a recommendation for somebody who's got some lovely expertise around the topic of money, I still have one slot open at the end of July to come on the show. So upcoming now, we've got booked. Who have we got booked? We've got Nadia Feiner booked for the 13th. Okay, don't quote me on dates. I'll leave the dates off. So we've got Nadia Feiner booked. We've got Joel Simpson booked to help us manage our money. So we've got loads of people coming up. And then in August, we're going to talk about business systems and automation. So we've already got 4 experts coming on there. So that's going to be really good. So I really look forward to the next couple of months and see how we can get organized better, how we can get more serious about our money, and about making sure that we don't spend it all on, I don't know, pizza and sandwiches or something like that. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. So that's it from us this week. We will see you all next week, and we're back on Wednesdays next week. So I'll catch you all then, hopefully without video lag. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.